In this video we'll be looking at section 4.4, graphing when in point slope form. So our essential question will be, how do I graph when given an equation in point slope form? So the key to being able to do this is identifying our point and our slope. If we have a point and we have a slope, we can graph a line. So first we must identify a point and the slope from the given equation. So that's going to be like the main idea behind this lesson, is identifying when looking at an equation. And then once we have our point and our slope, we can graph. Okay, so let's say we're looking at this equation. And we're looking at first let's write our general form so we know what we're looking for. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And we're looking for y1, we're looking for x1, and we're looking for our slope. So here's our example. Y plus 1 equals 1/4 times x plus 3. So identify the point, which is our x1 comma y1. Okay, so now the way we identify this is we're going to take just the opposite value of what we see here. So my y1 is going to be -1, so I do the opposite. So if it's a positive one, the opposite would be -1. So my y1 equals -1. We're going to do the same thing right here, and we're going to find its opposite. This will be my x1. So my x1 equals -3. And then right here, so that's our point. We identified our point. Our point will be x1, which is -3, that opposite of what we see right here. And then my y1 would be -1, which is the opposite of what I see right here. So I identified my point, -3 comma -1. Step 2, identify the slope. So I'm looking at my equation, and that value that comes before my parentheses is my m. So here's my slope. So I can say m equals 1/4, and that just stays the same. And now we have our slope, 1/4. And the last thing we do is graph. So we'll draw our xy. use our point, -3, -1, and we'll use our slope, 1 over 4. So we'll start here. So we'll start at the point, our x1, y1, which we found to be -3, -1. So I'll go -3, 1, 2, 3, and I'll go -1. So there's my point. Like that. The second thing we'll do apply or use the slope. So we got our change in y over our change in x. So our change in y is a +1. And then our change in x is a +4. And there's our second point. Now we collect the dots. Like that. And we graphed our line. So it's important that the main things we're looking to do is identify a point, and here's how we identify the point. That's probably the toughest thing to do, is identifying this point. So we take the opposite of this number next to our y, take the opposite, there's our y1. y1 is -1. We take the opposite of our value that's attached to the x, so the opposite of +3 is -3, there's our x1. So we've identified our x1 as -3, we've identified our y1 as -1. The next thing we did is identify our slope. Our slope is going to be that number that's out in front of the parentheses, that m value. So we identified that as 1/4, and we wrote m equals 1/4. Next we graphed. So to graph we have to start with a point. So we found our point that we're starting with, and then we apply the slope. So if we can identify our point and our slope, then we can graph a line, like so. Okay, so thank you very much for watching this video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.